Hello and welcome to a weekend news episode of the Leveraging AI podcast, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways to leverage AI to improve efficiency, grow your business, and advance your career. This is Isar, Métis, your host, and we have a very different episode for you today. We're going to talk less about technology and more about the impact of AI on the world. There are a lot of interesting things that happened this week, including a very long interview of Sam Altman, which is always interesting to listen to, as well as a paper by OpenAI calling Unlocking Economic Opportunity, a first look at ChatGPT-powered productivity, which is obviously very interesting to look at. Some latest rumors about the release of GPT-5 and other topics that we need to cover. And we're going to focus on how AI is going to impact the world in the next months and years. This episode is brought to you by the AI Business Transformation course. It's a course that I've been teaching personally since April of 2023, at least once a month, in many months twice. And I teach mostly private courses to companies and organizations, and we open a public course once a quarter. The next quarterly course that you can sign up for starts on August 11th, which is about 2 weeks from the time this episode comes out. So if you want to completely transform your career and or your business and have a very solid baseline on how to implement AI from a practical perspective in a business environment, this is the course that you need to join. And as a listener of this podcast, you can get $100 off the price of the course. So you can use the promo code Leveraging AI 100 to get $100 off. That's going to get it down to $900, which is probably the best investment you can put in your career and in your business right now. It's completely negligible when you think about the future of your career and the future of your company. And within 4 weeks, 8 hours of course, plus open office hours where you can join me and ask me anything, you can completely transform your understanding of AI and have a hands-on understanding on how to actually implement it successfully. So come join us on August 11th. And now let's dive into this week's news. Every time one of the leaders of the AI industry is interviewed on any stage or in any specific forum, it is fascinating because it gives us a glimpse to what they see, how they think, what they believe will happen. And this week it happened to be Sam Altman. He was a guest of the Federal Reserve event in Washington, D.C., talking to a lot of people from the finance world, from government. And it was a very long interview that dove into a lot of topics. And I want to cover at least the main ones because I think it's fascinating and I think it's very important to know what Sam thinks. Sam started by talking about the rapid progress and the productivity gains that are being gained by the AI and its progress. So a few examples that he gave were that scientists are reporting 2 to 3 times increased productivity and that computer programmers are seeing 10x productivity boost compared to what they were able to do before using AI. Sam even shared a personal experience where he was planning to do something over the weekend, something that without AI would have taken him days. He was hoping to be able to complete it with ChatGPT in hours, and he was able to finish it in minutes. More importantly, he said that those minutes that he was using AI to complete the task was probably less than $1 worth of compute tokens, which led him to the concept of intelligence too cheap to meter, which is his twist on electricity too cheap to meter, which is a phrase from earlier days where electricity became more common. And the idea is basically that we already have, and definitely will have, intelligence that down to the unit level will be more or less zero, which will allow us to do incredible things because we'll have vast amounts of intelligence at a very, very cheap price. He was talking about the fact that the cost of intelligence have went down in a factor of 10 every single year in the past 5 years, and he expects that to continue in the next coming years. And he summarized it with the following quote: "I don't ever remember something that would have cost 10,000 of knowledge work a year ago cost $1 or 10 cents or whatever it would cost now." And he was referring to his own personal experiment, saying he would have hired a professional code writer to do the thing he wanted to do, and now it cost him a few dollars or maybe $1 to do the same amount of work just using AI to do it. This is obviously profound, and as he's saying, that is going to continue to happen. So if it's $1 today, it's 10 cents next year, it's a cent the year after that, and so on and so forth, and that without any additional crazy breakthroughs, just following the current trend. Sam was also asked how much is this like previous revolutions and what is different, and he actually gave a great analogy to the invention of transistors, computer transistors. And he said when it was invented, it was a great revolution and people were talking talking about this, but then it got embedded into more or less everything we know. Computers, cameras, TV screens, cell phones, microphones, basically anything electronic that we are using has transistors in it, but nobody thinks about the transistors. People just think about the thing that they're using. He assumes the same exact thing will come with AI technology. He's saying nobody will talk or consider the AI companies for themselves because we will expect to have AI and intelligence more or less in everything that we're doing. He also compared the transistors scaling laws to the AI scaling law. With Moore's law for transistors, I said he doesn't have a name in AI, but it's the same kind of concept when we can continuously scale their abilities over the year. One of the most interesting points he was asked about is obviously what's going to be the impact of AI on jobs. And he said that he's going to, and I'm quoting, there are cases where entire classes of jobs will go away. They're entirely new classes of jobs that will come. But then he said that the most likely dominant trend would be, and I'm quoting again, the tools people have to use in their jobs will let them do more, achieve things in new ways. So he gave several examples on how AI will impact different industries. He was talking about computer developers, and he basically said that the world needs significantly more software than we can generate right now. So if saying if a computer developer can generate 10 times more code right now than they could a few years ago, well, that means we can generate 10 times more software, but the world may need 1,000 times more software than it has today. So there's still more demand than the AI can supply on its own. And then he gave the opposite example of where it's not going to work at all, which is customer service, which we talked about many times on this podcast. And he mentioned that historically, customer service was a real pain. You would call a company, you will talk to 4 or 5 different people about the same thing. And in many cases, that wouldn't even solve the problem. And then you would have to call them again and literally spend hours and a lot of frustration trying to solve something. Anybody who called any large company like AT&T and so on knows how horrible that is. And now AI agents, you can call them. They have a great conversation with you. They speak perfect English or any language you want in any hour of the day. And if they're connected properly to all the company systems, they will most likely solve your problem much faster than ever before. So this was his example for an industry that will probably be completely eliminated when it comes to human jobs. And I agree. I don't think we will have the concept of contact centers, or if it will exist 5 years from today, it will be on a much, much, much smaller scale than it is today. And he also gave an example of doctors. And he said, ChatGPT today, not even a medical specific AI, but ChatGPT today can probably give you a better diagnostics than most doctors in the world today, at least on day-to-day regular stuff, and probably beyond that as well. And yet everybody would want to go to the doctor. The doctor will probably use AI to give you a better diagnostics, but the chances that you won't go to the doctor and just have AI do the diagnostics for you may come in the future, but it will probably take a while. And he's saying that right now, if you go to the doctor, you usually wait, at least in the US, 30 to 45 minutes in the doctor's room before the doctor actually gets to you. That's a huge waste of time, which means we don't have enough doctors to deal with what we have. And having the doctors use AI in order to dramatically expand their capability to help additional patients and more accurately is for the benefit of everyone, which is absolutely awesome, right? So if you can go to the doctor and the doctor will see you in 5 minutes rather than in 45 minutes, everybody wins. You get better, faster service, you get healthier faster, more people can get access to healthcare because it's going to be cheaper down to the unit level. The doctors themselves can serve more people, make more money. Literally, everybody wins. So with these different examples, you can kind of see where it's going to be an augmentation of current human action versus complete change and dramatic removal of specific jobs and the creation of new jobs, which are unclear yet, which is, again, one of my biggest problems that that I keep on mentioning. And then there's going to be the new jobs created, which he didn't talk about at all, which is one of my biggest problems. So I'm going to talk about 2 issues that I have with the way Sam addresses the issue and probably all the other ones as well. One is that they're always mentioning that it's going to create new jobs, but they never mention what these jobs are going to be and how many of them are going to get created versus the ones that are going to get eliminated. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that they're referring back to historical revolutions that replaced human labor with human thinking. That's been every previous revolution that we had. And with every one of these revolutions, we became better. And every one of these revolutions was better for society because it allowed us to be more productive, it allowed the economy to grow, and overall made the world a better place. The reality is this revolution is different. It is taking over human thinking. It's taking over intelligence. It's taking over the thing that we moved to when manual labor was taken away. So what will we do next? Is it more critical thinking? Probably in the beginning, that is the right solution. But over time, potentially a very short amount of time, AI will be able to do better critical thinking than we can. And then what? I don't think they have an answer. I haven't heard anybody ask them that tough question. And I really fear that this thing that everybody expects that it will generate more jobs because previous revolutions did is not going to prove correct this time, at least not at the same scale, at the amount of jobs that it's going to take away. Back to Sam in the interview. The next topic that he touched upon is risks and safeguards in AI adoption. He talked about that in the beginning. There were a lot of hallucinations and that generated a lot of fear. He's actually claiming that the fear was significantly higher than the actual volume of hallucinations. He's saying that the actual hallucinations, even in early models, were around 0.1%, while a lot of people that were early adopters thought that 50% of the information is hallucinated. Either way, I don't think it really matters. I think what matters is that it does hallucinate, and in some jobs and in some cases, that's just not acceptable. But since the entire audience was in the financial sector, he gave examples from the finance world, and he said that they had serious concern in the beginning that financials and governments will be very slow to adopt. And yet he's saying that it actually happened the other way around, where very early on, groups like Morgan Stanley and the Bank of New York became their early biggest enterprise partners and that have implemented AI across multiple aspects of the business, mostly because of their fear that other companies will do it. If they don't, they will stay behind, especially with newcomers that can build an AI first bank or at least banking experience that will leave them behind. And therefore, they work together with OpenAI and on their own in order to create an environment that can allow them to leverage AI in a safe way, despite all the data controls and limitations that they have and regulations and so on. So the good news is if a industry that is as regulated as financial institutions, with so much sensitive information can do it, probably every industry can do it. Now, he was also talking about specific risks like prompt injections, which is the ability to create a prompt that seems to be doing one thing when in reality it's doing the other thing. While the models have a lot of private information about an individual, this can be exploited to get access to that information. He sounded a very serious concern specifically about the financial world, where he's saying a lot of banks are still using voice recognition as a way to identify a specific individual and to allow you to move a lot of money from one place to the other, when in reality, that aspect could be completely easily hacked by AI. And now quoting, a thing that terrifies me is apparently there are still some financial institutions that will accept voice print as authentication. And then he gave a few other examples. And then the following sentence was, AI has fully defeated most of the ways that people authenticate currently other than likes of passwords. What that tells us is we either develop new ways to authenticate and or sometime in the not too far future, we will have to go back to the days of going to the bank physically and talking to a person, or maybe a robot in this particular case, and in order to do any transaction that we can, because that's going to be the only safe way to actually protect our money. Sam was also asked what keeps him up at night. The question was something about the lines that all the sci-fi movies tells us that AI is going to destroy the world. So my personal thoughts and expansion on what Sam said is that from a truth detection perspective, we're in a very bad spot, maybe the worst spot in history of mankind. I've recorded an episode called The Truth is Dead very early on in this podcast. It was probably May of 2023. And I think it's just obviously getting worse and worse. I think the days that we can trust what we see in the digital communication, even from people we know, even from our loved ones, has to be questioned at any given point. We will not be able to tell who we're speaking to. Is it a real person? Is it a fake person? And the same will be true for news, for personal communication, and so on, which is a very scary thought because communication is what society is built on. You need to have trust in what your government tells you, what your newspaper tells you, what your municipality tells you, what your employer tells you, and so on. And most of our communication today is digital communication. And if that goes away, this whole thing comes crumbling down. And so that is my personal biggest fear when it comes to short-term impact of AI. But there are bigger concerns, and Sam was asked about what keeps him up at night. Basically, the question came from the aspect of most sci-fi movies have shown us that AI will take over the world and destroy us, what keeps him up at night. And Sam shared three scary categories that keep him up at night. One of them is bad actors' misuse. So basically a hostile entity that is developing super intelligence first, meaning before the US, and is using it to create some catastrophic outcomes, such as developing bioweapons that we can counter, or really sophisticated cyber attack that can take the entire US infrastructure and things like that. So he's saying in this particular case, we just need to make sure we're there first so we can have the right AI to protect against these kind of scenarios. Obviously, the other side thinks exactly the same way, which means we're in an arms race of super intelligence AI right now, which has its own scary aspects because there's less concern about immediate risk and more concern about big catastrophic risk in the future and being there first. The second scenario is the sci-fi scenario, the classic way of AI becomes autonomous, gets his own understanding, tries to protect himself or itself, and fights against humans because we become a problem for it to continue to thrive and we can't turn it off, etc. He's saying that because of the actions that they and other companies are taking, this is a relatively low concern. I tend to disagree because of the previous point. They're running very, very fast in this race, and they don't always take all the steps, and even if they do, not all the players do, to make sure that they are taking all the steps in order to prevent this from happening. But again, that's my personal opinion versus Sam's opinion. His opinion probably counts a little more. But then the last one that he said, which is really concerning to him, and now after I heard him, really concerning to me, is more or less what he calls an accidental takeover or an emotional takeover or over-reliance on AI. Basically, he's saying AI will become so deeply ingrained in everything that we do and so superior to us in its ability to think and come up with ideas that we'll become dependent in our decision making on the AI without exactly comprehending why it's deciding or suggesting what it is suggesting, and will become so comfortably numb that AI will basically run our lives. He gave short-term example of young individuals that are becoming emotionally reliant on AI as problem number one, by saying in the long run, these will be the leaders of countries that we rely on AI to help them make decisions. And then we get to the point that AI basically runs the planet versus humans running the planet, which is obviously a very scary thought. He did not give any advice on how he thinks we can prevent this from happening. Sam was also asked about education and how he thinks AI will impact education. And he gave two analogies, which were great and I think very helpful, and I use them myself as well. One of them had to do with the calculator, basically the invention of the calculator, and how math teachers, when it was invented, thought that's going to be the end of math teaching, because if you can do math on a calculator, why do you need to learn math? The second was his personal experience when he was learning when Google came out. And again, teachers and universities and schools were banning the use of Google in the beginning because they said, if you're not going to walk to the university and spend an hour in looking for the books and grading through the information, you will not actually learn. And we know that did not happen. If anything, the opposite happened. We have a lot more access to a lot more information. And he's saying that AI is going to have a similar effect where we're just going to get more relevant information faster, which will allow us to learn more things and do more impactful things while investing less time in the tedious aspect of research. Again, I do not fully agree because of what I said earlier. The previous revolutions, let's say the calculator and Google, gave us access to information and we had to think and analyze and figure out what to do with that information. And if we're going to defer that to AI and rely on AI to do that aspect for us, then I think our ability to learn and think critically is going to be eroded potentially very quickly. On the flip side, he talked about the fact that how AI is empowering small businesses and entrepreneurs, and it's going to create a new era for entrepreneurs being able to basically have an employee in every area, something that most entrepreneurs, at least in the early stages, cannot afford. So think about a solopreneur that can now have a team of somebody to do contracts and customer service and marketing and advertising, and enabling basically small businesses to get worldwide impact with very few people, because AI agents can take every task in the business without hiring additional people. On one hand, that drives amazing innovation. On the other hand, it doesn't generate as much jobs as it does today. So today, small businesses are the largest employer in the US and probably in the world because they employ most of the people. But if most small businesses will be really, really small because they won't have to hire a lot of people, yes, it's going to help with innovation and driving new products and services, but it's not necessarily going to help in creating more employment unless we have a complete explosion in the number of businesses that gets created. And I think that has to do a lot with human nature and how some people are more open to taking this kind of risks and becoming their own boss and some are not, or maybe that will just become the norm and everybody will just have to do it. I don't know yet, but it definitely provides an interesting opportunity. My businesses are a very obvious example of that. And another very important topic that Sam was asked about and was mentioned, which I really, really like, is he was talking about how AI can level the playing field across the globe and how it can provide access to high quality services, education, financial advice, medical diagnostics, and so on, everywhere around the world that has internet access, which is now most of the planet. So in areas and regions of the world where these kind of services are currently limited or non-existent, AI will provide them access to the top level of services as everybody else around the world, which can dramatically improve the situation of people in those areas. I really like that point. I already saw several different experiments of AI teaching in schools in Africa that is doing magic to the results of people from those regions, allowing them a lot more opportunities in life and so on and so forth. Add medical to that and consultation and other stuff. And I think there's definitely a lot to be gained beyond, obviously, the additional scientific research and discovery that will allow us to potentially solve the biggest problems of the planet. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is Sam, as always, is very optimistic, gave a lot of interesting viewpoints of where AI is going, but he also didn't shy away from the risks and challenges ahead. So I definitely recommend listening to the whole thing instead of just my summary. I'll put a link in the show notes for that, and you can listen to the whole interview. As I mentioned in the intro, OpenAI released a paper this week called Unlocking Economic Opportunity, a first look at ChatGPT-powered productivity. And in this paper, they covered a few important topics. Topic number one is AI is a fundamental transformative technology. So the exact quote from there is, throughout history, certain technologies have fundamentally changed what people can achieve. More than just simple tools, they provide a new kind of infrastructure that drives progress. The wheel, the engine, electricity, the transistor, AI is such a technology. What they basically mean is that it's not just a tool, it's an infrastructure for growth and innovation. And I completely agree with that. Probably the craziest one we've ever seen, again, because it is replacing, or if you want, enhancing intelligence. Then they're talking about the equitable distribution of the benefits of AI. So on one hand, they're saying that AI will dramatically expand the economic pie, but then they're saying that the crucial questions are, and I'm quoting, how will that expansion unfold and who gets what slice? And I 100% agree with that. That's going to be a very, very big question and a very big concern that's going to happen a lot faster. That connects on our discussions in previous episodes on job losses versus job gains, how much money is currently invested into AI companies and how much revenue they will generate, how will that be distributed, whether UBI is possible or not possible, or how the economy will even run if 30, 40, 50% of the population is unemployed. Again, I don't think anybody has answers, but they're at least raising that as a concern that needs to be addressed. The wishful thinking outcome that they want that would happen is, and I'm quoting, everyone to be on the up elevator of AI. And then to do that, they're saying that we need to, and I'm quoting again, democratize access, support workers through changing times, and build economic systems that reward broad contribution and participation. So again, this is a cool vision that they don't exactly explain how they will do. What it hints to is that every organization, whether a small company or governments, have to invest resources in providing the knowledge, the skills, the tools that the employees or people of that organization or society needs to have in order to be productive in this new universe with AI. I could not agree more. I think the most important thing right now is AI education, hence everything that I'm doing, from this podcast that you're listening to, my YouTube channel, the Friday AI Hangouts that are open to the public, and you can join us every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about AI and its impact, or down to tactical things on how to do things in specific businesses or specific use cases. And obviously the AI business transformation course and my workshops to companies. All of it is because I'm a huge believer that the more people know how to use AI, the more people understand the risks and the impacts that AI can have, the higher the chances that we're going to have on coming up on the right side and enjoying the benefits of AI while reducing the risks and the downside of this revolution. This paper also relates to the rapid, unprecedented adoption rate. So a few key factors that they shared, some we knew from before. ChatGPT is the fastest adopted consumer technology in history. They reached 1 million users in 5 days, 100 million users in 2 months, and 500 million daily users today. Its adoption within the first 2 years were twice as fast as the internet's adoption. Part of it is because infrastructure is already there, right? So the infrastructure for the internet did not exist in many places in the first years of the internet, and now it does exist in order to distribute AI, but doesn't matter. It's still growing a lot faster. They share that 28% of employed US adults use ChatGPT at work, up from 8% in 2023. And they shared an astounding number that over 2.5 billion messages are sent globally per day into ChatGPT, with over 330 million daily messages in the US alone. Now, what I will add to that statistics is people like me who are heavy users are sending dozens of messages every single day. And so I don't think this is equally distributed. I know a lot of people who never used ChatGPT or any other AI, or used it once or twice, or use it very rarely. So I live in somewhat of a bubble. And if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably in that bubble as well. But the reality is the numbers are very, very large and they're growing very fast. And that leads to the next topic in this paper, which is the diverse aspect of use cases in the US and in the world. So the top use cases in the US are learning and upskilling 20%, basically being a personalized tutor on multiple concepts and topics. I was pleasantly surprised to see that because I assumed that writing and communication is going to be first, but that's number two with 18%. And that's drafting emails, creating marketing copy, writing documents, stuff like that, and creating code and software-related tasks such as debugging and so on is third at 7%. Other big segments are design and creative ideation, business analytics, and translation. So these are the top use cases in the US today. They also shared, which is not surprising, that there's a skew towards younger generation. So most of the users are either 18 to 24 or 25 to 34. These are the two largest segments, which creates a big issue because all these people will know how to use AI, will get hired, more will get paid higher salaries, and the older generation may fall behind and have to find ways to catch up with this new technology, despite the fact that it looks like science fiction to them and may scare them to death. I think older people have to catch up. Otherwise, they're putting their careers at risk, which is harder to bounce back from if you're in your 50s or definitely 60s. They also gave actual information about different industries. The first one they shared was legal services, where lawyers and paralegals see between 34 and 140% improvement in their work quality, especially when it comes to complex research tasks. They talk about customer acquisition and customer support with an average of 14% more productive using AI, consulting with 25% increase in efficiency and 40% higher quality. Not sure how that was measured, but that was the information that they shared. Another interesting aspect related to that they're seeing that lower performers before AI catch up, and they're seeing a bigger increase in their ability. Similar information was found in research before, so I totally agree with that people that have lower skills, not the top performers, have the opportunity to close the gap and dramatically raise the average of results across the entire company or a department. In government services, people say that they're saving 95 minutes per day. Education, K through 12 teachers save nearly 6 hours per week, and so on and so forth. So more or less across every industry, there are implementations that are saving people significant amount of time. Now, I will say something in addition to that, which I think a lot of people are missing, especially in step one of implementation. Yes, AI can save you a lot of time, but you got to look at it from a more strategic perspective, especially from a business level strategy, and see how it can make you more money or how it can save you from losing your entire business if you're in an industry that is at risk. Meaning, yes, you can enjoy the immediate benefits of time savings and efficiencies, but from a strategic perspective, you got to think beyond that because that's going to give you significantly bigger gains as a company. They also talk about the fact that it is fueling entrepreneurship. We already talked about this before, but it is enabling more people to start more businesses and make them more effective and be able to develop bigger things with less resources, which as an entrepreneur, I found really exciting. As I mentioned, I'm running 2 businesses right now, and I couldn't have done this without AI. And then conclude by calling for a broad, inclusive conversation about AI economic impact and social impact across multiple stakeholders from government to industry and so on. I said that multiple times. I think there has to be an international group that will include governments and industry and finance and social and research and academia that will start looking at this with a much higher sense of urgency because we need to figure this out together. Otherwise, we will go through a very bad period before it gets better, if it gets better. Now, on a similar topic, there was an interesting article this week on Forbes magazine that talks about AI agents and how they set to revolutionize manufacturing. Now, the reason I don't want to dive too much into that, because most of that article was around information that was shared by the World Economic Forum white paper that was released in January of this year, and we covered at the time it was released. But there are several different anecdotes I do want to mention because I think they're important. They're talking about two different aspects, which is virtual AI agents and embodied AI agents. Basically, agents that do the work that happens in the computer and agents or robots that do the work that happens in the real world. Sam Altman also talked about this in his interview and so on. Yes, robots are a little behind. It's probably going to be 3 to 5 years before we start seeing the same amount of impact that we're seeing from the digital aspect of AI agents. But it's 3 to 5 years before basically every job on the planet is at risk. Because once robots can do more or less everything we do in the physical world, well, every blue collar job is at risk as well. And one thing that this article did not talk about, but that's in my head all the time, is that these two can work together. They can have a unified brain between the virtual AI agents, basically the one that happen in the digital space, that can understand every single piece of information that's happening in the company right now, and combine it to a huge brain operating machine, call it whatever you want to call it, with robots that can work together based on all of that information. So think about the ultimate beehive of data, where data is shared across digital and physical spaces, and then AI agents can act on both these spaces fully coordinated with one another. Think about what that means from the efficiency and impact that a single organization can have. It is absolutely mind-blowing, and this is coming within this coming decade. Take that to every aspect of self-driving cars and how we're going to get from one place to the other. If all these cars report their location, how many people are on board, where they are going, the stoplights are also connected to the same systems. The parking spots are also connected to the same system. Our entire way of life can be digitized and performed in a much higher efficiency. Now, is that good or bad? That's a very good question. Can we funnel it in a way that will give us more time with our kids and on the beach and hiking and so on? I really hope so, but it may go in exactly the opposite way. And this might be the modern version of the book 1984 by George Orwell, which, if you read it, is not a utopia. It's exactly the other way around. And so I think it's in our hands, going back to education, to make sure that this is resolved in the right direction. This article also talks about what are the measures for success in this new AI future. And it mentions that successful adoptions requires, first of all, robust governance, which means the right leadership, which means leadership has to be involved and needs to lead this. That's on the world level, on the country level, on the regional level, on the company level, on the department level. Leadership has to be involved in defining how to do this right. I talk about this all the time in my courses that teach this to the companies I work with. Leadership involvement is critical for the success of AI implementation. The next thing that they're talking about is workforce upskilling and education. Going back to my courses, this is what I do. So I fully agree that these are the first two things. And then they're talking about high quality data, strong cybersecurity, and ecosystem partnerships with suppliers, academia, and basically having your entire ecosystem connected to an AI infrastructure that can work together to gain the benefits of the data from all different sources. And I agree 100%. So what does that leave you from a taking action perspective? If you are in a leadership position, you got to figure out how, from a leadership perspective, you take control over this and drive this forward and educate yourself and other people in leadership so you can have the deeper conversations and then educate employees and then take care of the rest of the things that I mentioned. If you don't know how to do that, please reach out to me. There's a link in the show notes. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn and so on. I will gladly help you out figure out the right steps that you need to take. Now, to step away for a minute from OpenAI, Satya Nadella wrote an internal memo this week to all of the employees of Microsoft talking about the latest layoffs. We've shared on the podcast several times, there have been a lot of layoffs in Microsoft this past year. So just in 2025, they laid off over 15,000 employees, with over 9,000 just in the past month and a half. That represents 7% of their global workforce, and it's a lot of people. So Satya is sharing that these layoffs have been heavily weighing on his heart and that he's thinking about it a lot. He's also talking about the fact, or the dissonance, if you want, between the financial success of Microsoft right now, with its stock reaching a high of $500 on July 9th, with $75 billion in net income in the past 3 quarters. And yet there are a lot of layoffs. And Satya is talking about the fact that this is the enigma of success, basically saying success is not linear and the company has to keep on moving in order to keep success moving forward. He also talked about the fact that he envisions AI empowering all 8 billion people on the planet to have access to tools like research and coding agents, and basically driving new level of agility and innovation worldwide. So again, we see a leader in the industry that has a very optimistic vision, but his actions just took away 15,000 jobs in the last 6 to 7 months. He also mentioned that they're also hiring a lot of new people, which is there to reduce the fears, obviously, in the people in Microsoft that they're going to lose their jobs. I don't know if they're doing a very good job in doing that. If I would have been a Microsoft employee right now, especially in areas like writing code and stuff like that, I would have been terrified. Because as we know, actions are much stronger than words, and the actions have been very decisive of letting go of a lot of people while investing huge amounts of money in AI infrastructure. And I think that's going to keep on happening in Microsoft, and it's going to keep on happening in many other large enterprises. And I think the equilibrium is very far in the future. And in the short term, we're going to suffer from a lot of job losses, which will impact the economy, which will impact these companies, which may force them to let go of even more people. That might be a very vicious cycle that we're heading into. And now to a very interesting piece of news that sheds a light of where AI is and how fast it's progressing. So both Google DeepMind and OpenAI's ChatGPT just achieved gold medal level performance at the 2025 Math Olympiad, also known as IMO. This is the most lucrative math competition in the world. The biggest math brains in the world go to compete there to try to see if they can solve the really complex problems and achieve gold status. Each person, and in this case also 2 AI platforms, are given 6 really complex math problems to solve. So this year, both Gemini and ChatGPT participated in this contest, where Gemini participated officially, meaning they actually signed up for the competition, and OpenAI did this more or less on their own, kind of like a self-evaluated process. But both of them were able to solve 5 out of the 6 questions and achieve a score of 35 out of 42, which is a gold medal level for both of these models. Now, to give an idea how difficult that is, only 67 out of 630 contestants earned a gold medal status in the IMO contest this year. What this means is really profound. A general model that was not trained specifically to participate in this contest, at least this is what Google and OpenAI are saying, was able to achieve the same results as the most capable humans on the planet in math. Now, both the models that participated hasn't been released yet. They're both considered experimental. Google is planning to release DeepThink, which is the model that did this, sometime in the future. OpenAI is potentially releasing GPT-5 in the next couple of weeks. More about that in a minute. But the reality is these are generalized models that can outperform most humans on the planet on a specific field of expertise. If this doesn't give you a sense of what AGI is, I don't know what will. But as AI is able to do this exact thing, meaning being as good or better than every human on the planet in more and more fields, there are going to be less and less things we need people to do in order to achieve the same things we're achieving right now and beyond, which again, connecting back to jobs, what do you need the humans for if AI can do the same thing better? Going back to what Sam said, much cheaper as well. Now, the positive side of this particular piece of news is, if you think about science, most of science is based on math. And if AI can do math very, very well now, as good as the best people on the planet, we have a significantly better chance of actually progressing science, which can help us make new discoveries and allow us to solve some of the biggest problems that we have, such as feeding everybody on the planet, clean water for everybody on the planet, stopping global warming, stopping diseases that are killing too many people, and so on and so forth. So hopefully this is at least part of the things that we're going to gain out of progressing AI capabilities. The other little bit piece of good news in this, when it comes to taking jobs away, is that math, similar to writing code, is a very structured and predictable kind of environment, which AI is very good at, which has less flexibility than many other jobs and tasks that humans do right now, which means it's going to take a while for AI to catch up on these as well. I just don't know how long a while is. So I already gave you a little hint, but it seems that ChatGPT 5 is coming out in the next few days or in the next couple of weeks. There have already been several signs for that. One of them is a tweet this week from Sam Altman that said that ChatGPT is coming shortly. Another is people who saw a GPT-5-reasoning-alpha model in testing environments alongside with an enhanced O3 alpha model that is supposed to be superior in coding and front-end design capabilities that will most likely be a part of GPT-5. From everything we've heard so far, both from Sam Altman and other people in OpenAI, as well as from different news, GPT-5 is supposed to combine all the breakthroughs of OpenAI reasoning models, their O series, together with their multi-modality models, which is their regular GPT series, into one cohesive advanced solution where you will tell it what you're trying to do and it will figure out everything for you. You won't have to pick the right models. You won't have to be the best prompter in the world and so on. Now, combine what I just said together with better reasoning, better coding, better in picking the right tools, and there are more and more of these tools that are available in the ChatGPT environment, and combined with agentic capabilities, which they just released last week. And you understand that GPT-5 is going to be a really big deal that will allow us to do with AI a lot more than we can even do today, which is already a lot more than most people understand and comprehend. I will obviously keep you posted as soon as GPT-5 will be released. I will probably post about it on LinkedIn and then talk about this in the immediate episode after that. I already started, by the way, experimenting with the ChatGPT agent. From what I'm seeing right now, it is really, really cool from the perspective that it doesn't access your tools. It has access to its own tools and it runs in its own little browser and does it in its own little universe. That from a security and access perspective is fantastic. That being said, from the 2 quick tests that I've run so far, which was pretty sophisticated requirements, it's not as well developed as Manus and GenSpark. I assume it will get there. Again, all I've done is 2 little tests, so it's not a comprehensive comparison yet. But as I mentioned last week, even if it's not as good as Manus and GenSpark at this point, the fact that it's going to be in the hands of hundreds of millions of people versus a few geeks like me when it comes to Manus and GenSpark, it means a lot more people are going to use advanced agentic capability, which will drive more adoption, develop more use cases, and give OpenAI a lot more data on how to fix it and make it even better. There are many, many more pieces of news this week that you need to know about, such as the fact that Instructure, which is the company behind the Canvas learning management system, has teamed with OpenAI in order to create an LMS that has AI infused into it, which makes perfect sense to me. And I've talked about this multiple times, that AI is the biggest opportunity the education world has potentially ever had. So I'm glad to see that there is now a partnership at a global level on that aspect. There's a whole article and a lot of news about the dependency or the usage of teens using AI as companions and how is that impacting them. Research from Anthropic that found that if you give AI too much time to think, it's actually making the models dumber, which is really interesting to understand. Oracle adding MCP support to many of their tools, and many, many other news that you need to know. And you can read about all of them in the newsletter that we have. So there's a link in the show notes. You can sign up for the newsletter and see the other probably 40 or 50 articles that I did not cover in this episode. Don't forget to sign up for the AI Business Transformation course. Don't forget to use the code Leveraging AI 100. This Tuesday, we are releasing an episode about how to develop agents, multi-layer agents on NA10. It's a fascinating episode that will show you how magical this can be and how it is really open to anyone. It's not straightforward, but it's definitely not black magic, and anybody can learn it and develop really sophisticated multi-layer, multi-agent solutions for their businesses. So that's what's coming this Tuesday. If you're enjoying this podcast, please click the share button on your device right now and share it with a few people who you know will benefit from learning these things as well. And while you're at it, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. I will really appreciate it, and it helps us reach more people. That's it for this week. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you again on Tuesday.